Ukraine has received a warning from the United States over strikes on Novorossiysk, and how all Flamingo missiles that were launched reached the Votkinsk plant in Russia. We'll talk about this with Julian Röpcke, senior political editor at BILD. Julian, glad to see you, and thank you for
Hello.
joining us.
Yes.
Julian, Russia has once again launched a massive strike against Ukraine using drones and missiles. We constantly emphasize that we need to strengthen our air defense. To resolve the air defense issue, Ukraine would like to manufacture systems such as the US-made Patriot or missiles for them, but so far we have not received the necessary licenses from our partners, said President Volodymyr Zelensky. How do you think, why has Ukraine still not received the licensing approval to produce systems such as the Patriot? Is it their reluctance to grant licenses driven by legal constraints, political caution, or escalation concerns?
Well, I think it's a mix of everything you just said. On the one side, of course, you have commercial interests when it comes to the companies. We have seen the same in Germany, where we are giving certain equipment to Ukraine, but surely not for free, but for a lot of money, which partially has to be paid by the German taxpayer, partially by Ukraine and by other funds. I think the same is true, of course, when it comes to Patriot missiles. And there you have the companies behind them, of course, which do not want to give the intellectual property, the IP away, because they're making lots of money with this. As you know, modern PAC-2 and PAC-3 Patriot missiles, each missile costs between 3 and I think up to 8 million euros. That's a lot of money. At the same time, of course, you have political influence in all these decisions, I guess, especially from the Americans, from the United States. And as you said in your moderation in the beginning, the United States still do not fully seem on the side of Ukraine. They seem to be sort of a neutral position. That's what they claim, at least, that they're outside the conflicts. But sometimes you get the impression that it's more pro-Russian, which could be another reason why there's, of course, no American pressure on the American companies to give the IP to Ukraine and the possibilities to manufacture them. So in the end, everything that comes to Ukraine now has to come via the Pearl program, which means European countries have to buy this from the Americans to give this to Ukraine, or it has to come directly from bilateral aid. But that's the end. That's the same in the end. I mean, in the end, we have to acquire these Patriot missiles and other missiles and give them to Ukraine. As I said before, they're quite expensive. There are not many to be produced. And unfortunately, the Americans, I think both the companies as well as the government are not interested in giving Ukraine the chance to manufacture their own air defense missiles.
Unfortunately, Russian Har-22 missiles that the occupiers intended to use to strike Ukraine on the night of February 26 disappeared from Ukrainian armed forces radar while still over Russian territory. According to Pavlo Narozhny, a military expert, it is highly unlikely that we could have shut down these missiles over the Bryansk region in any way. The distance is simply too great. However, there could have been technical problems, possibly with the navigation system or perhaps with the engine, and the missiles may have fallen somewhere in the Bryansk region. How likely is this, and could this indicate a systematic problem?
Well, we have seen this before. I think there are several Oreshniks which departed from Russia but never reached Ukraine. I think that's a reality when we come to Russian manufacturing right now. We have also heard some days ago that almost every cruise missile which is fired as Ukraine right now was just produced, manufactured some months before. So Russia, I think, ran short of stocks. They are building the cruise missiles and missiles right now, which they are firing at Ukraine. At the same time, they might be finding some older depots where they have still some of them which were not in the service and not in the active service for decades, probably. So both of this, having very old missiles which you did not use or cruise missiles which you did not use over the first 4 years of the conflict, as well as having just manufactured new cruise missiles, which is a very hasty process right now. They need them as they use them. Both of them could indicate that there are technical issues. However, in the end, I don't know how many of them crashed. If it's 1 or 2 or 3, it's possible that there's a problem, even a systematic problem in them. But if you have a big number of them crashing, of course, this needs I mean, it sounds stupid, but it needs to be investigated by Russian authorities, what's not working there. And this will probably not happen again, as they are keen on having very destructive attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure every time. So if this happened once, it's possible. As you said, it's very unlikely that it was air defense, but probably they will fix this mistake.
Could the disconnection of Starlink from Russian military forces affect Russia's long-range strikes on Ukrainian cities?
Well, it does so when it comes to drones, but I'm not aware that cruise missiles or missiles, ballistic missiles, are using Starlink. I think they're also too quick to do so. So, of course, when it comes to drones, when it comes to Molnia, when it comes to Gerbera, when it comes to Shahed, all of these are limited to be used with Starlink. Of course, they can still be used with SIM cards from Ukrainian operators. They can still be used with the GPS coordinates put inside. But this live view, this possibility to adjust the target depending on what the drone is seeing, this is not possible anymore right now, which is very good. It's a very good thing. I think we have a Ukrainian high officer seen yesterday saying Russia lost 20% of its offensive capacities due to the Starlink failure. I think this is one of the best things that happened to Ukraine during the 4th year. Now we are in the 5th year, during the 4th year of the war.
Julian, you mentioned Russian drones, and an enemy fiber optic guided drone reached the northern outskirts of Kharkiv, according to a Ukrainian Defense Ministry advisor known by the call sign Flash. Electronic warfare systems cannot detect it, and radar at low altitudes is not a guarantee. New solutions are required, possibly acoustic detection or a comprehensive layered defense approach. Why are existing electronic warfare systems ineffective against fiber optic guided drones? Does this indicate a broader adaptation strategy by Russia in response to Ukrainians' the capabilities?
Yes. Yes, I have seen as well the Ukrainian reports as well as the Russian video. They have posted a video about this where you can see the strike, where you can see the exact location. And I think it is 23 kilometers south of the border and around 5 to 6 kilometers north of Kharkiv city. And unfortunately, we are in a stage where they are able to do this. I think I've seen lots of these fiber wire optical cables when they were finished and when they were fixed. I know the Chinese are building them now, and they have the length of 10 kilometer, 20 kilometer, 30 kilometer. I've seen some of them up to 60 kilometers, and I've also seen Ukrainian officers saying that some of their drones have 65-kilometer range now with the optical guidance. So, I mean, if you look at this, it's not unlikely that Russia will use many of these 30-kilometer range optical guided fiber wire drones. They have been following the highway from the border. This is quite clear when you see where they have been hit. And it's a big problem, of course. I mean, you know that Kharkiv was under Grad fire and everything when the Russians were close enough until they were pushed back there. So this was a terrible time for Kharkiv. And with the extension of the range of fiber wire drones, I will not say Kharkiv is facing the same destiny again, but there is a increased likelihood that individual cars, individual civilians, individual shops, individual soldiers will be hit again by fiber wire drones. I mean, we are just coming to this age. And I just spoke to a Ukrainian army officer from the 7th Rapid Response Corps yesterday. And he said that the only thing he can imagine against these drones is an electronic warfare. So this means electronic impulses, electromagnetic impulses, which are used to fight these drones. But we have to be very honest that this is in a very early stage. We don't know how they are working so far. We cannot direct them so far. And using them, and he also said this, using them would also destroy all own equipment in this area, because there's no possibility to direct it at a certain square meter or square, a certain area. So this is a very dangerous situation right now, where you have an attack weapon like the fiber wire guided drones, where you don't see the defense being as quickly developed as with other things. I've seen reports today on Ukrainian television that they are increasing the networking, the network building and the tunnel building north of Kharkiv. I think this is one of the things you can do. Fortunately, these drones are very small so far, so a net can stop them, at least when it's, it has to be repaired afterwards, because you will have a hole in the net, and they are using this in Dobropilia area a lot, this tactics, to have one fiber wire drone destroying the net and another one then using the hole in the net. So it's a really dangerous weapon. Fortunately, Ukraine is using the same weapon right now. Where I just saw a video of former Kupiansk school, which was totally cleaned by a single fiber wire drone. And I have seen the same when it comes to depots from the Russians. So yes, it's a very dangerous new weapon. It becomes longer and longer range, unfortunately. First, it was in the short range area of up to 20 kilometers. Now it seems to be moving in the mid-range area of 20 to 100 kilometers. And as I said, as long as there's no means to defend against this beyond nets and beyond pump guns, and this is everything right now, it remains a real big threat to not only soldiers, but also civilians.
Julian, I agree with you that it is not a bad idea, and hope that we can solve this problem with Russian drones. About Ukrainian missiles, President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that all FP-5 Flamingo missiles launched by Ukraine during the strike on the Votkinsk plant in Russia reached their targets, demonstrating the high quality and accuracy of these missiles. How does the confirmed accuracy of FP-5 Flamingo missiles reshape Ukraine's long-range strike doctrine? Does this strike signal an expansion of Ukraine's industrial targeting campaign inside Russia?
So first, I think it's quite counterfactual to say that all of these cruise missiles reached their target. I mean, we have seen the launch video from the CEO in the night, and it showed at least 6 or 7 starts. At the same time, we have seen very accurate satellite images of one hit. It was 18 times 30 meter, which were hit there. We also, yesterday, probably you also showed this on your network. It was a video from a CCTV showing this one Flamingo, which hit the exactly this area where we saw the big hole in the roof. So I would agree that one Flamingo FP-5 hit this area. It's otherwise I wouldn't know where. You know, it makes a big impact. Only if the warhead does not explode, this is maybe a chance that you will not see the impact site on recent satellite images. Otherwise, you will see all the impacts. Even if it hit open ground, it will be a giant hole because it has 1 ton of explosives or a warhead, including lots of explosive inside. So that's the first thing I would say. I have confirmation, visual confirmation from satellite and from CCTV that one Flamingo hit. At the same time, of course, I mean, that's exactly what Ukraine needs. And this is what I was talking about a long time ago. Yes, you can harm Russia a lot with all these little FP-1, FP-2, AN-196 LUT and all these others. I think these are very effective weapons. Hard to shoot down, but still it's needle sticks which are getting through. If you have a target which can explode or ignite, like a Druzhba oil pipeline, that will work with these little drones. But if you have a bigger plant building weapons or something like this, I think we have seen in the past that only a single room or a single floor were demolished while production resumed just around this target a day later. With the Flamingo, I think it's totally different. You have a big warhead there, you have these big holes, you can guess and you can be quite sure that there was lots of destruction within this hit target. But again, if you see the satellite images and if you zoom out a little bit, you see it's a massive complex where they are building these Oreshnik and Iskander and others. It's a massive complex, and in the end, maybe, I don't know, 0.5% of it were damaged by the Flamingo, which hit it. So it just can be a start. That's what Ukraine needs. It needs much more Tomahawk. It needs Taurus for this closer range, up to 500 kilometers, which would include every military target inside Moscow, every factory, and there are lots of them, hundreds of them, probably. So I think the argument that the Taurus has too short range is what we are hearing right now in Germany. It's not valid. Yes, the Flamingo can fly much wider, much longer, but the Taurus has a much better navigation system. It can fly much deeper. It's much harder to down. It can see where it is itself the whole time, and that's why I think Ukraine still needs Tomahawk and Taurus and other means of making big holes in Russian factories.
We're waiting for Tomahawk and Taurus missiles, and the Trump administration warned Ukraine against carrying out strikes on target inside Russia that could harm U.S. economic interests. According to Ukraine's Ambassador Olha, this reportedly refers in particular to a Ukrainian drone strike on the port of Novorossiysk in November. What do you think about this situation?
Yes, I think that's pure cynicism from the Trump government. We have seen that American companies, American interests, American infrastructure was hit in Odessa, in Western Ukraine, in wherever you want. And whenever Mr. Trump was asked, what about these Russian strikes? He said, it's war. Everything bad happens in war. It's both sides are hitting each other. So now we have Ukrainian weapons striking American interests, as they say, in Russia. And I mean, we are in the 4th year of the war. Everyone investing in Russia, everyone still having interest in Russia, blame on himself. I mean, it's really clear that this is a country at war. It's the aggressor country. Everyone should be out of it. If you're still running a factory or if you're still running infrastructure in Russia, it's your own fault and not the one of those attacking it. But still, I mean, that's why I said it's really cynical from the Trump government to ignore Russian strikes on U.S. interests in Ukraine and deplore Ukrainian strikes on Russian or on American interests in Russia. So I really don't know what to say about this. This seems to be unlogical, and it again shows you that the alleged neutrality the Americans are having whenever the Russians are hitting Ukraine, it does not seem to be the same when the Ukrainians are striking back.
An air raid siren is sounding right now. Maybe you hear.
Yes.
Russian forces detonated a dam near the settlement of Osikova in the Donetsk region using a 3-ton guided aerial bomb, a FP-3000. The attack caused flooding and cut off one of the logistical routes to Konstantinivka. What will be the consequences for logistics? Do you link strikes on infrastructure to Russia's preparations for more active offensive operations?
Well, I mean, since the detonation of the Kakhovka Dam, we know that the Russians don't care about civilian infrastructure. They don't care about flooding. They don't care about drying out these areas because, you know, in the short term, it's very wet. In the long term, it's going to be very dry in these areas and you cannot use them anymore, which is true, unfortunately, for the whole Dnepr Delta in Kherson Oblast. And now we are seeing the same in north of Konstantinivka. If you don't care about civilians, if you don't care about rules of war, of course, it makes sense from the Russian perspective. If you look on the map, Konstantinivka is, I would say, semi-besieged, at least from the east and from the south, and also partially from the southwest. So there's only one big road leading to Drushkivka, which is the next town. And this is exactly the road that was flooded right now by attacking this dam, this reservoir. So unfortunately, we have seen this in the past. We have also seen this in the, I think, Kurachovo area, where the Kurachovo reservoir was also attacked, trying to cut down or cut Ukrainian logistic routes. Yes, it's going to be even more difficult now. Maybe not when it comes to I mean, you can transport a lot by drones, by drone bombers, which can also carry logistics. But for now, I think for a certain number of days or even weeks, you cannot transport as much by trucks anymore and by other vehicles. So this is really, really dangerous. And yeah, you were rightfully saying the Russians are trying to capture Konstantinivka with every mean they can. I think let's say it runs in line with what they are doing, not only to Ukraine in general, but also to Konstantinivka in particular. You have probably seen the town. I think it's held by the 93rd Brigade and other units of the Ukrainian armed forces. And we have seen how totally devastated the streets and the living quarters were. So Russia really doesn't care about any of this. They don't care about civilians. For example, I think you have still more than 1,500 civilians in Konstantinivka right now. So now evacuation is also harder for them. Feeding them is much harder in the town. Although you could argue that they should evacuate when there's an obligation order for this. But still, I mean, it will harm everyone. Only not the Russians, because unfortunately, as I predicted, and as it's happening in Pokrovsk as well, they don't care if the infrastructure is destroyed. They will just live in the ruins. They will put their tanks, put their FPV teams and their Ladas in all these ruins and garages, which are maybe semi-operational. So I think they don't really care about what's happening. And that's a bad thing, of course, when you have this dictatorship attacking you and just not caring about anything.
Russians don't care about people. More than 1,700 mercenaries from 36 African countries are fighting in the Russian army, according to Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha. Africans are reportedly recruited through schemes offering jobs in Russia as security guards, construction workers, or warehouse employees with promises of high salaries and legal status. Upon arrival, their documents are confiscated and they are forced to sign contracts with the Russian Defense Ministry. Why is Russia increasingly relying on foreign recruits rather than domestic mobilization? What do you know about this?
Well, I think the answer lies in the question. I mean, no one wants more mobilization. I think the 250,000 people they mobilized in 2022, this was the biggest pushback in the society you have seen back then. There were even some protests. Many people fled the country. I remember that Georgian restaurants were full of Russian men suddenly, which were fleeing Russia and trying to get out of it. So, of course, Putin wants to avoid another mobilization at any cost. This is why he's giving all these contracts out. It's really expensive. You know that the Russians are getting up to 50,000, in some areas even 70,000 euros for the first day, even if they are getting killed on the first day. Their families are getting this. And as far as I know, this is really running this money. So it's not just a bait. And then they're saying, haha, you're dead or in the war zone and you don't get it. So it's really costly for them to have these contracts with their own people. It's politically even more costly to have another wave of mobilization. For some reason, and I said this, I think, in the past, they're not taking the drafted men, I mean the young men, the conscripts, they're not taking them to Ukraine in big numbers, which I would explain that they are preparing for another war against NATO. This is why they are doing this yearly mobilization of, I think, 150,000, maybe a little less, a little more sometimes. And I think almost none of them is being sent to the war zone, which is interesting because these are young men which have to serve for the army. They get the best training, the best education. They are in the best age also. If you want to advance, you need young, strong men, but they're not being sent to the front lines. So I would say they are sending them to the drills and to the education, to the training, to then fight against the Baltic states or something like this. Yes, I mean, when it comes to Africans, I think first, it wouldn't be a big problem if you would recruit them for fighting, because Ukraine is doing the same. I think I heard numbers that 6,000 Colombians are fighting on Ukrainian side, but this is known. I mean, this is known beforehand when they're signing the contract, when going to the army, when they're going to Ukraine over Bogota. They know what they are doing, and it's a very important knowledge transfer for them to educate their army in modern warfare, which is being done in Ukraine. So this is one thing. On the other side, if you are telling people you will be a house cleaner or you will clean the streets of St. Petersburg, and then as soon as they do something wrong or allegedly have contacts to Russian women, then you say, okay, and now you're a criminal. The only chance is to go to Ukraine and die there. This is, of course, very sinister, and it perfectly fits into the Russian scheme of tricking everyone, of lying to everyone, of having propaganda, not just to the Europeans, not just to the Ukrainians, not just to the Russians, but also to everyone they want to fight and die for their interests.
Julian, thank you so much for this important and interesting, as always, conversation. Thanks a lot for supporting Ukraine and Ukrainian people. Julian Röpcke, senior political editor at BILD, was with us today. Please share this interview and continue supporting Ukraine. Thank you so much again, and see you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.